we've been reporting, House Democrats are considering holding Attorney General William Barr in contempt of Congress after he failed to show up for Thursday's House Judiciary Committee hearing. Those threats come as a growing number of 2020 Democratic presidential hopefuls are calling on the Attorney General to resign following Wednesday's hearing before the Senate. The calls for Barr to resign have emboldened President Trump's 2020 campaign team. They sent around a petition Wednesday evening, calling on supporters to stand with the Attorney General. It also said, quote, "Patriotic Americans can't sit by and watch Democrats attack Barr for doing his job." I asked the Trump campaign's National Press Secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, about this on Red and Blue. Why make the attacks on the Attorney General part of the campaign?
We thought it was important. You know, we've made the case for a long time that Democrats only want to investigate. They only want to obstruct. And here you have more evidence of that. They don't like the conclusion of the Mueller report, no collusion. They don't like the conclusion of Barr, no obstruction. So they're attacking William Barr, his credibility. So we at the campaign will stand up for his credibility. He was confirmed unanimously, by the way, last time around.
And joining me now is Massachusetts Congressman and 2020 Democratic presidential candidate Seth Moulton. Congressman, thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with the Attorney General and his resignation. You are seeking that. Why?
Absolutely. I mean, he lied to Congress very clearly, and he's violated a subpoena. Those are against the law, and this is the top law enforcement officer in the country. If there's one person who should be following the law of the land, it's the Attorney General.
It would seem highly unlikely that he would in fact step down. So then what?
It seems highly unlikely, but it doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. It's interesting to compare him to one of Nixon's attorney generals, Elliot Richardson. Elliot Richardson was a World War II veteran who, when asked to do illegal things by President Nixon, tendered his resignation. Barr has never done anything to serve the country in that capacity, and here he is holding on to his job after he lied to the United States Congress in clear violation of the United States Constitution.
Well, we just mentioned in our intro there how the president's campaign is looking at this issue as an opportunity, right? They think this is something that could resonate. What is your response to those who would say continuing to pursue this plays right into the hands of the president's political strategists?
Well, first of all, it's just simply the right thing to do. You know, the oath that I swore to uphold, to defend and protect the Constitution of the United States, it's the same oath that I swore as a United States Marine. That's what matters here. Not the politics, but the principle, doing the right thing for the American people. I would also point out that we need to call President Trump out when he is being fundamentally unpatriotic, when he's not standing up for the rule of law. It is not patriotic to disobey the Constitution. It's patriotic to defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that's exactly what we have going on here.
There are currently 21 other Democrats running for president. Why do you think you're the right person to take on President Trump?
Well, first of all, I am taking him on these fundamental issues of his job, not just as president, but as commander-in-chief. And I actually think that's really where he's weak. You know, his job is, if nothing else, to keep us safe, to keep this nation strong and secure. And he has failed on multiple fronts. From cozying up to our enemies like Putin and Kim Jong-un, to refusing to take care of Americans here at home by keeping us safe in our schools. The fact that we have a border crisis with kids in cages is just another example of how national security matters to people here at home. So we need to take on Trump where he's weak. I'm also someone who comes with a bit different background. I'm the only candidate in this race who's had the experience of leading troops in combat in our recent wars. And in many ways, the hardest job I ever had was getting an incredibly diverse group of Americans, people from all over the country with different religious beliefs, different political beliefs, all united behind a common mission to serve America. And I think that's exactly the leadership we need from our next president in this terribly divisive time.
How much, though, do you think national security will really be an issue in the campaign?
Well, we need to make it an issue because it is an issue of President Trump's performance, and frankly, it should matter to all Americans. So when people tell me, oh, it's not the top issue in the poll, I say that's okay. Leadership is about explaining to people why these issues are important. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm going to talk about a lot of other issues as well. I've been talking this past week about how I'm the only candidate who actually gets single-payer socialized health care. And that's why I'm concerned about some of the plans to just force everybody onto Medicare when some people want to keep their private insurance. And frankly, we should inject competition in the system between a public option like a Medicare or a more modern version of it and private health care options that people already have in order to provide that competition to bring down costs costs and improve outcomes for everybody. That actually makes a stronger healthcare system than the one that some of my colleagues have proposed.
So let me ask you specifically here, what is it you think some of your colleagues have gotten wrong about this issue?
Well, I'll tell you what, I go to the VA. I made a commitment to continue getting my health care at the VA even as a member of Congress, because I said, look, if my fellow Marine veterans are going there, I'm going to go there myself until we fix the system. And the results have been pretty mixed for me. There are some things the VA does well that we should learn. Like, for example, they negotiate drug prices with pharmaceutical companies. So drug prices at the VA are pretty low, and they do a good job of that. In fact, when you need to get a prescription, you can just check a box online and it comes in the mail. But on the other hand, I showed up at a VA hospital in Washington to get a minor surgery, to get a hernia repaired. And fast forward to when I got the surgery after they first couldn't even find me in their record system, they sent me home with the wrong medicines. And that's a potentially very dangerous situation. For me, it just meant I wasn't getting the painkillers I need. But the point is that a single-payer system has some real problems, and you just need to look at the VA to see that. So if people are just forced onto a Medicare for All program with no choice themselves, you accept this government-run health care plan designed in 1963 and there's no other option, I think we're going to have a real problem, and that's why a lot of people are very concerned about this plan. My plan is to have Medicare for All, or a similar public option like Obama originally wanted as part of Obamacare, to have that compete against private sector options to lower costs, to bring down the premiums and prescription drug costs for everyone, and also improve outcomes, because these plans will have to compete for patients to join. So look, I'm with all Democrats in saying that health care is a right, but let's have competition in the system to actually make it better.
You've been criticized for opposing Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House. Why did you oppose that, and do you regret that decision now?
Well, of course, it wasn't just about Leader Pelosi. It was the top 3 leaders in the House of Representatives. And I don't regret that decision, because as a result of having that democratic debate about who our next leader should be, we got the Voting Rights Subcommittee, we got the Climate Change Subcommittee, and we got an agreement on term limits, which means that this great new generation of leaders who just came into the most historically diverse class in American history will actually have a chance to lead, so that people will look at our party and not just say, oh, they're really good at standing up to Trump, which, by the way, Speaker Pelosi is doing a fantastic job of right now. But also they'll look to our party and say, that's the party of the future. That's the party that's going to take us forward. And this new generation of leaders that I worked so hard to get elected in the midterms is actually going to have a chance to lead.
So then what do you make of the fact that, yes, it's early, but you still have Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders sitting atop the polls?
Well, it is very early. You know, I haven't been in politics that long, but my experience is it's better to be ahead at the end of the race than at the beginning. And, you know, look, they're great leaders in our party who are putting forth amazing ideas. Joe Biden, in particular, is a mentor and a friend of mine. But a lot of that is about name recognition. They've been around for a while, and people are familiar with them. I'm looking forward to making my case to the American people. I'm starting with veterans, with young voters in the early states, and I've been starting this campaign based on service. We've done service events as we've gotten started, because fundamentally this should be a job about public service, and I think a lot of people forget that.
So the first Democratic primary debates are in June.
Yes.
Do you think you'll qualify?
Well, we're certainly making progress towards that goal, absolutely. You know, I got in later than many people because I have a 6-month-old daughter at home.
How are you planning on getting there, though? And you've got to have 65,000
You have to have 65,000 donations, right? So we're working hard online
or
to
register
get this.
1% in the polls, which currently you're not at last check. So
You know,
what's your plan to do that?
So I'm not concerned about not being there. We're 8 days in the campaign, but we're making really good progress towards both of those goals, and that's what we're working on every single day. I'm going to be traveling a lot to early states and doing more of these service events, reminding people that fundamentally this is about public service. And as more people see that and get engaged, we had an amazing turnout at an event that I went to in Nevada this past weekend, fixing a house for an Air Force veteran. As we get more traction on the campaign, I'm looking forward to getting on the debate stage.
So you served as a captain in the Marine Corps and did 4 combat tours in Iraq, and I wanted to get your thoughts specifically with respect to the issue of immigration. The president has framed this as a national security issue, as you know, with a crisis, he says, at the southern border. border. What are your thoughts on that as a national security issue, quote unquote, and also the use of the U.S. military to try to carry out border enforcement and border policies?
Well, it is a national security issue, and it's on the minds of a lot of American voters. But the president's response to it has been wrong in almost every way. First, we saw this administration separate kids from their mothers and literally put kids in cages, which is absolutely disgusting and couldn't be farther from American values. Next, we saw the president say that we should put all our money into a 5th century border wall that's not going to even stop the problem. I mean, we have drugs coming through the southern border. They're coming through the border ports of entry. That's where we should put more resources and security. That's exactly what Democrats have proposed.
So as someone who has served, do you think that American troops should, in fact, have a role in some sort of border policy, border enforcement?
No, they're put down there as a political stunt. I mean, they're building walls. They're doing things that even a Republican on the Armed Services Committee said yesterday should be done by contractors, not American troops.
But if it's a national security issue, the president's argument goes, then this is a proper use of American troops.
No, that's not right, because we have a lot of national security issues that are handled by the FBI, the CIA. The point is you have to use resources where they're needed. And this is not a proper use of American troops. And the troops, I think, know that. A lot of them don't understand why they're there. The military is already stretched thin with our wars overseas, and we should have Customs and Border officials on the southern border. We should have contractors if we need to improve border security, but we should not be flaunting the use of American troops. One of the saddest parts of this crisis, to me, is when I went down to see this for myself and talk to folks on both sides of the border, and went to Juarez, Mexico, where we visited a house full of deported veterans. Deported veterans, just think about that, a deported veteran. That's a term that shouldn't even exist.
Can you explain that for people who might not be familiar? Because you don't necessarily have to be a citizen to serve.
Well, I'll give you an example. So we met an amazing Navy veteran who'd served 10 years on a destroyer doing important work. He just hadn't gotten around to doing his citizenship paperwork while he was in the Navy. He admits it was a mistake, but you just didn't get around to do it. His kids are American citizens. His parents are American citizens. But because he didn't do the paperwork, after he got out, he got a DUI. And he admits that was wrong. He served some time, but when he got out of prison, he was sent back to Mexico, a country that he hadn't been to since he was 16, a country he has no family or friends there, doesn't even know. This is someone who served America. I have colleagues of mine in Congress who've never served the country in uniform, but have gotten DUIs. They're sitting members of Congress. And this proud veteran who served our country, literally put his life on the line for us, is sitting in a country that he's never known. So the system is broken. It is a crisis that we have American heroes living in a house in Juarez, Mexico, when they should be here as part of their community, with their fellow veterans, with their families. This is a crisis, but it's not solved by building a wall or by sending American troops down to the border just to attract political attention for the president. This is serious. It's a national security issue. What we need to do is real comprehensive immigration reform, where we give dreamers and veterans a pathway to citizenship, where we make sure that kids are not separated from their families, where we actually send aid to Central America to stop the flow of migrants. The president just cut off aid. Actually send aid there to stop the flow of migrants, because there are a lot of them coming, and engage with our allies. That's the kind of leadership we need from the Commander-in-Chief, and that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about on the campaign trail.
Conversation to be continued. Congressman Seth Moulton. Congressman, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for having me.